Faithful Jayant. Read and enjoy. Let's read the story of a poor woman who never felt defeated with her difficulties. She faced all her difficulties with a brave heart. Let's read the story about a faithful servant, a beautiful princess and a prince. The faithful servant saved his master at the cost of his own life. There lived an old, sick king. Jayant was his faithful servant. The king said, "My faithful Jayant, I am worried about my son. If you do not promise me to be his guardian, I cannot close my eyes in peace." Then Jayant answered, "I will never leave him. I will always serve him truly, even if it costs my own life. After my death, you must show him the palace, but not the room where there is the portrait of the princess of the Golden Palace. If he sees her picture, he will fall in great love and will undergo great troubles." And the king expired. One day the faithful Jayant showed Prince his inheritance. There was only one room which he did not open. The young king tried to open the door by force. The faithful Jayant said, "I promised your father before he died that you shall not see the contents of this room." But the prince insisted on seeing what was inside the room and Jayant had to relent. And as the prince saw the portrait which was so beautiful, he asked, "Whose picture is this?" "She is the daughter of the king of the Golden Palace," replied Jayant. "Oh, Jayant, I cannot live without her. My life is set upon the search for her." Jayant said to the king, "Everything which she has around her is of gold. Goldsmiths made all beautiful things." Then they sailed over the city where the daughter of the king of the Golden Palace lived. Thereupon, Jayant took some of the golden cups, and went straight to the king's palace. When he came into the castle yard, he showed her contents to the maid. Then she exclaimed, "Oh, what beautiful golden things! The king's daughter must see these gold things." When the king's daughter saw the golden cups, she liked them all and said, "I will purchase them all." Jayant said, "What I have here is nothing compared to what is there in our ship." Out of curiosity she said, "Take me to the ship. I will go myself and look at your master's treasure." Faithful Jayant took her to the ship with great joy. When she stepped on board, faithful Jayant unmoored the ship. Meanwhile the king showed the princess all the golden treasure. After seeing, she wished to depart. But when she came on deck, she perceived that they were far from the shore. "Ah!" she exclaimed in fright, "I have been betrayed." The king said, "I am not a merchant, but a king. It is true that I have carried you off, but that is because of my overwhelming love for you." When the princess heard these words, she felt reassured. She willingly became his bride. On their voyage on the high sea, Jayant saw 3 cranes in the air that came flying towards them. The first one said, "The king is carrying the daughter of the king of the Golden Palace," and said, "What matters that? When they go on shore, a fox-colored horse will spring towards them on which he will mount, and as soon as he is on it, it will jump up with him into the air." The second one asked, "Is there no escape?" "Oh yes. If anybody takes out the firearms which are in the holster and with them shoots the horse dead, then the young king will be saved. But who knows that? And if anyone knows it and tells him, such a person will be turned into stone from the toe to the knee." Then the second one spoke again, "I know more. Even if the horse is killed, the young king cannot still retain the bride, for, when they come into the castle, a beautiful bridal shirt will lie there upon a dish and seem to be woven of gold and silver, but it is nothing but sulfur and pitch, and if he puts it on, it will burn him to his marrow and bones." Then the third crane asked, "Is there no escape?" "Oh yes," answered the second. "If someone takes up the shirt with one's gloves on and throws it into the fire so that it is burnt, the young king will be saved. Whoever knows it and tells him will be turned into stone from the knee to the heart." Then the third crane spoke, "I know still more. Even if the bridal shirt be consumed, still the young king cannot retain his bride. For, after the wedding, A dance will be held, and while the young queen dances, she will suddenly turn pale and fall down as if dead, and if someone does not raise her up and takes 3 drops of blood from her right arm and throw them away, she will die. The one who knows it and tells it will be turned into stone from the toe to the crown. After that they flew away, and faithful Jayant, who had perfectly understood all they had said, he thought to save his master, even if he destroys himself. As soon as they came on shore, it happened just as the crane had foretold. An immense fox-colored horse sprang up. "Capital," said the king. "This shall carry me to my castle," and he tried to mount, but the faithful Jayant drew the firearms out of the holster and shot the horse dead. Now they went into the castle, and there stood a dish in the hall, and the splendid bridal shirt lay upon it. The young king went up to it and wished to take it up, but faithful Jayant pushed him away, and taking it up with his gloves on, bore it quickly to the fire and let it burn. Soon after this, the wedding was celebrated, and the bride began to dance. All at once she grew pale and fell as if dead to the ground. Then the faithful Jayant sprang up, 3 drops of blood out of her right arm, threw them away. But when the young king saw this, he became very angry and called out, "Throw him into prison." The next morning faithful Jayant was brought before the king. He said, "Everyone condemned to die may once before his death speak. Shall I also have that privilege?" "Yes," answered the king. Jayant narrated the conversation of the cranes which he had heard at sea. Jayant had fallen down at the last word and was turned into stone. The king put the stone statue near his bed. After some time, the queen had 2 twins. Once he looked up at the statue and said, "Ah, could I restore you to life, my faithful Jayant?" The statue began to speak, saying, "Yes, you can make me alive again, if you, with your own hand, cut off the heads of both your children and sprinkle me with their blood." The king was terrified when he heard that he must kill his 2 dear children. But he remembered his servant's great fidelity. Drawing his sword, he cut off the heads of both of his children with his own hand. And as soon as he sprinkled the statue with the blood, Jayant stood again alive and said, "Your faith shall not go unrewarded." And taking the heads of the 2 children, he set them on again and anointed their wounds with their blood, and thereupon they healed again as if nothing had happened. Now the king was full of happiness, and he saw the queen coming. He said to her, "My dear queen, we can restore his life, but it will cost us both our little sons whom we must sacrifice." The queen was horrified. She said, "We have to sacrifice our sons." Then he said, "God be praised." And then he told her what had happened. Afterwards they lived happily together to the end of their life.